I think about that scripture, Father, please forgive them, they know not what they do, and how much that really means to me as a person. The decisions that I made in my life, not just in my addiction, but in general, I really did not know what I was doing. But then God would send me to treatment, and I'd get the tools that set the path for a guy like me to get free and to recover. But then in turn, I would not use what God had given me. So no longer could I claim that I do not know what to do. And the one thing that they told me 11 treatments ago is once you go to treatment, your high is forever ruined. You're not going to be able to feel good about what you once did. You're always going to have that lingering thought, and some of us had that even in our addiction. This isn't for me. I shouldn't be doing this, and the different things that go through our minds when we're stuck. I was on the phone with a wife with 2 small children, one of my close friends that's MIA on a crack bender right now. You know, him and I have known each other in the program for probably 16, 17 years. You know, he pursued the American dream, got his own company, built his own house, 2 babies, now he's missing. And don't think for a minute that can't happen to you. I said to the women last night is, what you build will bury you. I'll say that again. What you build will bury you. So everything that you work so hard, and when I say you, I'm talking about me too, so don't get twisted. So what we build buries us. So the more you have to lose, the more you lose. And if you ain't got nothing to lose, like some of us that are chronic relapsers think that what's the big deal if I relapse? I always got another recovery in me. See, I know I got another relapse in me, but I can assure you it was not easy to get back to these rooms. I was stuck. I was scared. I didn't know which way to turn. And I thank by the grace of God that I was able to muster enough strength to make a call and say, this isn't for me anymore. But then what I see happen with a lot of us is this. We come to the realization that life is not for us. And then we get into the rooms of recovery and we say, this isn't for me either. So I'll ask you the question, what is for you? What's for you? If the addiction life isn't for you, if the Serenity Village or AA life isn't for you, which are one and the same, what is for you? What is it that you're going to build on the sand again that will in turn bury you? If you're building with God by working a thorough third step and every step thereafter, you're building on the rock. I am so tired of building and losing. Building, rebuilding, losing. 6 months sober, relapse. 9 months sober, relapse. 1 year sober, everybody's back in my camp again. Trusts me again, believes in me again. Money's back in order, job's back in order, family's back in order. Lose it again. Wouldn't it be easier just to do the deal than to get it and lose it? Get it and lose it. Get it and lose it. That is work. If you're lazy in your recovery, you'll get put to work in your relapse. Either way, there's going to be pain. Either way, there's going to be pain. Recovery has to not only be our priority, it has to remain our priority. Jacqueline put a post on recently on a quote that I said, it's one thing to be faithful. It's another thing to remain faithful. It's one thing to get sober. It's another thing to stay sober. See, so many of us know how to get sober, but very few know how to stay sober. And staying sober takes sacrifice. I ask you all the time, has your recovery got as much as your time, your talent, and your money as your dope dealer has? Are you willing to give God what you gave your drug dealer? Your bar, your casino, pornography. Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I sense that you're going to be very direct this evening. So guard the hearts of those easily offended. Lord, remind us that we were never offended in the streets, so we got to man up and woman up in our recovery. That when you say your word is living and active and sharper than a double-edged sword, your message is designed to cut into us. And the we of this program stitches us back together. Lord, I thank you in advance. If there's anything of me, in me that's not of you, I ask for forgiveness, and I know I receive it, and I stand here purified. Because I am just one knucklehead that desires to change on a daily basis. And Lord, I thank you for what it says, that it's a daily reprieve, contingent on our spiritual condition. And I thank you for that. In your name we pray, amen. So I can't really talk about the 9th step until I talk about the previous 8. So when we know that we admitted that we were powerless and our lives had become unmanageable. I don't think anybody would go to AA, NA, CMA, SA, GA if they had their life together. Well, hey, you're a newcomer. How did you get here? Well, I don't know. I just got a promotion. I haven't, everything's great. No, that's not how it works. We come here because our lives are extremely unmanageable. And just like I said, if I admit my powerlessness, it in turn makes me powerful. But if there was only one step, as the big book alludes, that the first step is the one that we want to try to be as perfect with as possible. That's the one that we've got to get down. If you do not get down pat the first step, you will continuously relapse. So admitting that you're powerless and your life had become unmanageable. Everybody else sees it, but we don't. Because when you're in it, you don't see it. And one thing I know about people in recovery is this. Either they don't give themselves enough credit or they give themselves too much credit. What I know about us is either we minimize or we fantasize. You never quite get the full truth. You never quite get the full truth. So the second step says we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. No different than what Mike just said. What Mike said is when he went to AA, he didn't believe that those people were really happy. But part of me coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity is I saw people like yourselves that were content and full of happiness. And God is so awesome that he'll show you somebody in the rooms that you used to party with that's sober now. And you'll get a little slice of hope, like if that brother can get sober, I can get sober too. So we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It only could if you let it. So why is that power restoring them to sanity and not me to sanity? Why? Because I'm not utilizing that power. The third step says we made a decision to turn our will. Will is an internal thing. Will is where your decisions are. What should I do? What won't I do? What am I going to do? Will I or won't I? I used to love living my life alone. I turned my will in my life. Your life means your sacrifice. Where you go, how you act, who you hang out with, what you do with your time. Your life is how you spend your time. Turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand him. So I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. Well, then you don't understand him. It's just telling you to turn your life over to something other than yourself. Because if the person that's still calling the shots, the same person that got you in this predicament, you fail to recognize that your best thinking got you here. The fourth step says, made a searching. Now, only thing we like to search for is another drink and another hit. But when it comes to making a searching inventory of ourselves, I'll search out your inventory to find dirt on you, but I ain't going to look at me. So this is new to me. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Fifth step says, admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't fantasize it. Just you got to take a look. Sixth step, we're entirely ready to have God, say God. God. Say God. God. God remove our defects of character. Relapse is a character issue. We've got to learn character. We've got to learn integrity. We got to, I know what they say in the rooms. The rooms say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's true. But you need to be sick of you. I'm sick of me. I'm sick of me lying. I'm sick of me stealing. I'm sick of me taking shortcuts that are nothing but setbacks. I told the women last night, I said, manipulation is a behavior of the enemy and the addict. But really what manipulation is, it's a level of influence that has been misused. For those of you who are manipulators, God will turn that into a person of influence, and next thing you know, you'll be privileged to be helping people. So those of you who are master manipulators, ask God to switch it for you. You are really an influential person. You just haven't learned integrity yet. 7 step says, humbly ask God, say God. God. Say God. God to remove our shortcomings. You know what? We're shortcut artists. You got to understand, if you shortcut this thing, your short is coming. Aren't you tired of coming up short? It's like, I lived a life for 30-some years of almost getting there. Because I was a sabotage artist, the closer I got to wherever there was, I'd quit, I'd sabotage. No, I just wouldn't quit. I'd go down in flames. I'd go down in flames. And now the 8th step talks about willingness. And that's all it's talking about is willingness. And so many of us like to get ahead of ourselves, so we start freaking out about making the amends, when only thing the 8th step is talking about is making that list and becoming willing to make the amends. Say 9th step. So now we're on the 9th step. It says made direct amends. That means direct. A lot of us don't like to be direct. I want you to has anybody ever been stung by a bee? Raise your hand. And I want you to think about the 9th step as you were the bee and you stung somebody. And for those of us who have been stung by a bee, I would ask you the question, was it more painful when you got stung or after the bee left and when it swelled up? So after you stung that person that you harmed, you left and they swelled up. For those of us who have experienced rabies, it wasn't so much getting bit, it was all those shots afterwards. So you don't know whoever you stung is still swollen. See, the 9th step says that we made direct amends to such people. Well, who do you know who those such people? It says such. Say such. Well, whoever your sponsor told you to. You don't call the shots on this one. To such people, quite frankly, we shouldn't call the shots on any of them. Wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And it says now in the NA book, it talks about the process has called us to examine our lives. So by now, we should have done a lot of examining of our lives. And I really want you to look at the fact, if you've done a 9th step prematurely, did it stick, or did you just go back and do more things that required more amends? So this step leading up to it is called for an examination of our lives, identify our character defects, which a lot of which come from step 4, become aware of how we have harmed others when we've acted on those defects. Now, here's what I've learned in therapy. I've gone to a lot of therapy. Who's gone to therapy? Therapy's awesome. Don't be ashamed of therapy. Therapy is extremely awesome, and without it, I would not be sober today. I would not be sober today. God puts things on this planet for people like me to use. And one thing I've learned in therapy, and one thing I've learned in the steps, and I'll read this really quick again here. It says, became aware of how we have harmed others and when we acted on those deeds. See, you can feel any way you want to feel, but by now, you know you can feel any way you want to feel, but you can't act any way you want to act. See, there's many times that I feel like doing something that I shouldn't do, but I don't do it. I've learned to process my feelings by now. I've learned that shortcoming God removes, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself with the 10th step, but you can feel any way you want to feel, but you just can't act any way you want to act. But the problem that we had before is, however we felt, we acted. And where did we end up with that? So if I felt crappy, I acted crappy. If I felt mad, I acted mad. If I felt angry, I acted angry. If I felt like getting high, I got high. So you can feel any way you want to feel, but the key is that we can't do anything that we want to do. And what it's saying here too is we have an 8-step list that we know that we have to do. However, knowing and doing are two different things. How many of us have known that we were supposed to do something, but we didn't do it? It's progress rather than perfection. It says, for each of our amends, every possibility exists. From being held fully accountable to being completely excused. For those of us who have done a 9th step, I learned more from being held fully accountable than some person said, don't worry about it. I think you learn, and I learn from pain. I think if I just continue to get excused for my behavior, I won't learn anything. We must be willing to follow through regardless of the potential outcome. Now let's talk about outcome. A lot of times we project the worst possible scenario. And if we reflect back on our lives, as it said, examining our lives, when did it really work out? I mean, I said this to one of my people I love dearly when she walked in here. It always works out. And it's true. You're here. So we got to quit running from this stuff and run to it. And it says, once again, with the help of a higher power, we simply have to walk through our fear and go on. Now, if you have not done a 4th and a 5th, you are still paralyzed by fear and you won't be able to walk through it. We must be courageous when we work this step. Through the prospect of making amends may frighten us, we turn to God of our understanding for strength. So if we track back and realize that we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understand Him, now we're already walking in God's will, and we can call upon God to help us get through this, the things that are frightening us. There's going to be a lot of things in life that will cause fear, but fear should no longer be your master. Because the Bible says that perfect love casts out all fear. The Bible also says that God is love. So if you have God, you have love. And if you have love, love casts out fear. So it's really learning this stuff. It says, but whether they are willing to accept us or not. See, by the 9th step, you should be at a place within yourself where it doesn't matter if they all accept you or not. Your life isn't over if you don't get accepted. But if you haven't worked the steps in order, you're going to get just crushed if somebody doesn't accept you. Trust me, I mean, half of you don't accept me. Probably 90% of you. Sizing me up, talking smack, leaving halfway through the meeting. That doesn't mean I'm going to quit doing this. Doesn't mean I'm just going to roll up shop and, oh, they don't accept me, I'm done. He accepts me. He accepts me, and I know that today. And I'll tell you what, He accepts you too. You wouldn't be here if He didn't. And what it's saying is, so we can't be so easily shaken if we surely have worked the step. It says, the risk we take, now how many risk takers are we in? But how many risk takers are you taking in your recovery? We were big risk takers in the street. See, I'm going to take risk in my recovery. I'm going to get to know people. You know, I'm going to push through it just like I did in the streets. The risk we take to be sure to be rewarded with increasing personal freedom. See, it's about cleaning your side of the street. The spiritual principles of honesty and humility that we've learned in earlier steps are invaluable to us in the 9th step.
We would never be able to approach the people whom we owe amends in the spirit of humility
if we hadn't been practicing the principles before now. See, we've got to understand that, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but if you still got fears and resentments and all these defects and shortcomings and you try to make an amends, it ain't going to go well. It isn't going to go well. Our path has led us to humbly accept who we have been and who we are becoming. See, you got to understand, you've got to live in both worlds. A lot of us are unable to do that. Either we're living in remorse on who we have been, so in turn we can't become anything, but majority of people I see, they're just focused on who they're becoming, and they never circled back to who they were. And if you don't deal with who you were, you can never be who you are. See, you got to understand that both of these have to be looked at. And now it goes on to say, resulting in a sincere desire to make amends to all that we have harmed. And you got to be sincere about it. To be certain of our motives are based on spiritual principles. We find helping to reaffirm our decision to turn our will over to the care of God of our understanding before making every amends. So if you don't take God with you into your amends, it's probably not going to go well. And just don't do a blanket prayer. Every amends you make, ask God to go with you. Quite frankly, I ask God to go before me and work on the person's heart before they see me. Because typically their heart is hardened towards me. And what it says now, we should not expect a pat on the back. So many of us just are so conditioned if we don't get noticed and we do not get an attaboy. After a while, if you do this, like Mike would attest, nobody's saying, Mike, you're doing a great job, keep going with me. No, it's expected. See, I'll never forget when I played Bantam hockey. And they pulled me out of Bantam hockey and they put me on the high school team. And the high school coach told me that every time you come off the ice, you're not going to get a pat on the back anymore. Your performance is expected. Now, a lot of us we think somebody's mad at us if we're not doing a good job. If somebody doesn't tell you you're doing a good job every day, it doesn't mean you're not doing a good job. You know, and quite frankly, when you had that type of affirmation, it was short-lived anyway. A lot of us got the good jobs when we were busting a move on the sidelines. So then we had to live with that confusion. Oh, you're doing great, and you got an 8-ball in your sock. I mean, that was me. I mean, you got a fifth in your trunk or in your pocket or whatever else. I mean, and now it goes on to say, to be certain of our motives are based on spiritual principles. Turn our will over to God. We should not have pat on the back and praise for living in accordance to the principles of recovery. We must let go of any expectations we have or our amends and leave the results to the God of our understanding. We may humbly ask for forgiveness, but if we don't receive it, we let that expectation go, knowing we have done our best. See, you might not get forgiven. Just like that video said, as long as you experience forgiveness. See, you have to in order to be forgiven, you have to forgive. But we don't like that either. We expect to be forgiven, but we hold on to resentments. That don't make much sense to me. And what it says now, and I've heard this in the rooms too, the higher your expectation, the lower your serenity. And we've got to know, changing the way we live is a lifelong process. I mean, you didn't get to where you were overnight. You're not going to change overnight. Don't quit. Just keep moving forward. Is perhaps the most significant amends we can make, a living amends. Amends of this nature can't be made in a 5-minute apology, no matter how heartfelt. Although the admission of the wrong and an apology may be the starting point, we need to go on by making a concerted daily effort to stop hurting our loved ones. Because, who do we hurt? The ones we love the most. It says, because the action we take in this step can be profound impact on other people, we don't want to just carelessly step out and start making our amends without first discussing them in detail with our sponsor. Some of us have felt compelled to make our amends on an impulse
just to ease our own conscience. However, we usually end up doing more harm than good. Our recovery is also making amends to ourselves. So anybody that I see working a program, I know they care about themselves. But those people that are taking shortcuts, working a half-measure program, they don't care about themselves. And that's what the literature is saying here. Our recovery is also a way of making amends to ourselves. We treated ourselves horribly. How many have treated yourselves horribly? In our active addiction, the guilt and shame we felt each time we harmed another human being took quite a toll on our self-respect. I had none. The most important results of the 9th step will be within ourselves. See, it's about what's going on inside of us. So many of us are trying to build stuff externally which will turn out to bury us, and nothing's changing on the inside. This step teaches us a great deal about humility, love, selflessness, and forgiveness. We begin to heal from our addiction and no longer live as many regrets. See, today I have no regrets. I've done a lot of bad things, but Romans 8:28 says that God will work all things together for the good for those that love him and are called according to his purpose. All the evil I did has been recycled into good. I honestly can say I'm not proud of a lot of it, but I have no regrets. And to live a life full of no regrets is a blessing. That's the blessing of working the steps. We grow spiritually and find that the true gaining a new level of freedom. See, you got to understand there's higher levels of freedom. You don't cap out on your freedom level. If you can keep going with God through 11th step and 12th step, you can get higher and higher and higher. Isn't that what we wanted to do in the streets? Get higher and higher and higher? Well, that's what I want to do in my recovery. I say this with all humility, but I'm at a higher level of freedom than I was last year because God isn't going to lose his reputation over me. He isn't going to lose his reputation over you. And now it says one of the most paradoxical aspects of our recovery is that we are thinking of ourselves less. So many of us are sitting under the sound of my voice with a secret plan on how to get what you lost, and it's all about you. Check out what the literature says here. That by thinking of ourselves less, we learn to love ourselves more. That doesn't even make sense, but it's true. Because of the love we extend to others, we realize our own value. It's about what you give, not what you get. Because whatever you get, you can't take with you when you die. It's what you gave is what will be your legacy. It's not about getting, it's about giving. What will be your legacy? You know, and it's so important that we grasp that, and it affects the world. As a result of working the 9th step, we are free to live in the present, able to enjoy each moment and experience gratitude for the gift of recovery. And a basic text. The steps should not be avoided. How many of people like to avoid things? Now, if you're anything like me, every night I had to go to bed with something on my mind that I was avoiding that I would eventually have to deal with. And then I wonder why I relapse. Because, if you're avoiding something from your past, how can you ever be present? If your past is always speaking to you, so it says, should not be avoided. If we do, we are reserving a place in our program for relapse. Now, you're hearing in the majority of these steps in this literature, if you do not work this particular step, and it's said on other steps too, you're reserving a place for relapse. That should tell us the importance of working the steps. And now it says, pride, fear, and procrastination often seem impossible barrier. They stand in the way of progress and growth. The important thing is to take action, to be ready to accept the reactions. So many of us don't take action because we're afraid of somebody's reaction. Why is somebody's reaction going to just kill you? You walk where I'm walking, people disrespect me constantly. But if you have self-respect, and God will give you a couple key people to understand and love you, that's all you need. Right, Rich? Rich is, if anybody wants a good sponsor, talk to Rich. Stand up, Rich. All right. So that's a blessing. And Rich Hill. Rich Hill's a solid man too. Check this out, check this out. The important thing is that we take action, be ready to accept the reaction of those persons we had harmed. We make amends to the best of our ability. In some cases, amends may be beyond our means, which are a lot of that will be the case. We find that willingness can serve in the place of where action we were unable to contact the person that we had harmed. Now, you can say you have willingness until somebody asks you to act on it. I'll say that again. Anybody can say they have willingness until somebody asks them to act on it. I'm willing to serve. Let's go. I'm busy. Next time. I'll do it next time. Next time sometimes doesn't ever come. So we've got to understand. However, we should never fail to contact anyone because of embarrassment, fear, or procrastination. You know, you've heard this said, fear. You know, it's forget everything and run, false evidence appearing real. It's also face everything and recover. Face everything and rise. So you don't have anything to be embarrassed about. Quite frankly, you're more embarrassed than they are. And whoever you go to make your amends to, if they don't receive it, you still got to go on with your life. You still have to go on with your life. It says, we recommend turning our legal problems to lawyers and financial or medical. See, I mean, you know, here's the thing. I mean, we can't avoid this stuff. We got to deal with this stuff. If you need to see a psychiatrist, see a psychiatrist. If you need to see a psychologist, you need to see call the people you owe money to. They're not going to shoot you. At least the majority of them. Let me tell you something about well, I don't got time. Well, I'll tell you. So the Bible says the Bible says that I will even have your enemies be at peace with you. So I used to run the streets at a pretty intense level with gangs and violence and guns, and I've seen people get shot right in the head, right in front of my eyes. Over $10. I was down. One of my friends was in the Hennepin County Jail, and I had been sober for a while, and he wanted me to put some money on his books. And for those of you who are familiar, you take the elevator downstairs, and there I was in the elevator with this gang member that I owed money on the streets for. I'd seen this guy shoot somebody in the head over $10. And as I'm sitting in the elevator with him, I said, God makes even your enemies be at peace with you. I said it to myself. He didn't know I was saying it. He says, do I know you? I said, yeah, you do. He goes, you look good. Is that you driving that black car out there? Yep. We're good. It never turns out the way you think it's gonna. See, if you owe money, call the people. They're not going away. Get help. When I started this journey, my debt was 6 figures plus. My legal problems were horrific. My family problems were even worse. But God is who God is. God is the restorer, the reconciler, and all those things. And so whatever you got, there's nothing bigger than God. Contacting someone who is still hurting from the burn, the sting of your misdeeds can be dangerous. Indirect amends may be necessary, where direct amends would be unsafe and undangerous. See, I make a lot of indirect amends to the women of Teen Challenge that I didn't party with, but I was never mean to women, but I was kind of a guy that was out there doing the thing. For those of you who know the crack lifestyle, it ain't nothing nice if you're caught up in it. So I will never meet those women that I ran with. A lot of them are in prison. So I give back to other women. It's an indirect amends. If your kids won't let you see them, be nice to somebody else's kids. If you won't get hired back with the company that you were drunk at, work hard at your current company. Make those indirect amends with it, and it says, we try to remember that when we make amends, we are doing it for ourselves. It's about cleaning our side of the street. Instead of feeling guilty and remorseful, see, if you're burdened with remorse, you'll take more actions that require more remorse. If you're full of guilt, you'll do more things that make you feel guilty. You got to understand how this stuff works. And it says remorseful, that we relieve of our past. Step 9 helps us with the guilt and helps us with the anger. It helps us with our guilt and helps them with their anger. Sometimes the only amend we can make is to stay clean. We owe it to ourselves and to our loved ones. We approach those we had harmed with humility and patience. Many of our sincere well-wishers may be reluctant to accept our recovery as real. Why does that offend you? I mean, they're just speaking on history. Well, I've seen this before. Eventually he's going to drink. Eventually she's going to use. This isn't real. It's a matter of time before they fall again. Well, why would they say that about us? Because that's all they've ever seen. Now, if you have worked the 9 steps of this program, it shouldn't affect you when they say that. Quite frankly, it should motivate you. I don't blame you for saying that, but I'm still moving forward. People come to me and they share their opinion about me or this or that. Why would I let that go? I mean, why let the opinions of other people affect your life? You all have heard the story about resentment. Somebody's sponsor took a sponsee. He hated this guy. And every night he thought about this guy that he hated and resented. Every day this guy's face would pop up or his name would appear in his mind of how he was so wrong with this guy. So his sponsor took him in the car, drove him over to the guy's house at 11 o'clock at night. He says, look at his house. You hate the man that lives in that house. Do you see any lights on in that house? He said, no. He's sleeping like a baby, and you are captive to him because you hate him. Who's losing? You are. I mean, be smarter than the game. How have you hating somebody? Oh, like I hate this guy who lives across the street from this church. That guy doesn't even know I exist, but I hate him. He looked at me cross. I mean, who's losing? I am. I mean, there's people in 12 years that have come in this program. They think I'm an idiot. They think I'm, full of it, egotistical. They hate me, but, I'm still here. And I am a lunatic. I am a knucklehead. I am clueless. But I can tell you what, my heart is pure towards you. And that's why I am here 12 years later. That's why. This program is not as successful as it is because I'm the founder or Doug's running it. This program, we make mistakes about you guys all the time. This program is successful, number 1, because of God. Number 2, because our hearts really do want to help you. But sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we overreact. Sometimes we get caught in the moment because we're sick of being taken. We're not perfect. You're not perfect. But God's perfect. And if we know what this step is, we do it. And it says, we approach this now. It says, a lot of courage and faith goes into making an amend. And a lot of spiritual growth results. We are achieving freedom from the wreckage of our past. We will want to keep our house in order. The only house that you can keep in order is yours. So don't let somebody else's disorder take away from your order. I mean, and it says AA 12 steps and 12 traditions. Good judgment. Well, I've never been known for that. It says good judgment, a careful sense of timing. It wasn't good at that either. Courage and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we are at step 9. There will be those who ought to be dealt with just as soon as we become reasonably confident that it will not that we can maintain our sobriety. So what that is saying is this, that if you're not spiritually sound and you make an amend, it could really affect you in a negative way. This is a very important thing to understand. That's why we need counsel on this. There will be those whom we can make a partial restitution. See, a lot of people that I either owed money to, I started making it on a payment plan. And a year or 2 into it, they said, forget it. They just wanted to see if I was going to be responsible. They just wanted to see if I was going to give them enough respect to acknowledge that I was wrong. See, if you own it, it doesn't own you. See, you have to own it. Don't go into a 9-step saying, hey, I'm sorry for stealing your car and writing a bad check out of the check I took out of your purse. I would have never done that if I wasn't drinking. Don't blame it on the alcohol. You did it. But when you start walking with God, you might have did it, but you're not it. So you got to understand, so when they speak about your past, it shouldn't affect your present. Because the Bible says that you're a new creation, the old is gone and the new has come. So don't put so much of that in there. And so partial restitutions work, and it says, complete disclosures do them and others more harm than good. So you got to have counsel on what you're revealing. The AA promises. The AA promises come after the 9-step. It says, if you are painstaking about this phase of our development, what that means is this. By then you've had to walk through your pain. It says, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. You know what? I don't know if I'm halfway through my life or not, but I am simply amazed. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. What that means is what you thought freedom and happiness wasn't it at all. This is a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. You're living in both eras. You've looked at both sides of your life there. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. You will not just know of peace, you will actually know peace. You won't just know of God, you will actually know God. And the key is that no matter how far down the scale you have gone, it don't matter how bad you were, what you did, how many times you've been to treatment, what has happened in your life. It don't matter how far down the scale you have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. Has your experience in your addiction benefited anybody? That's the real question. Has your addiction benefited anybody? Mine has. A program was started because of an addiction. So God takes a negative and turns it into a positive. That feeling of uselessness. Now, some of us are sitting under the sound of my voice still feeling useless. Well, because you're not making yourself useful. And self-pity will disappear. All of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden I'm useful. I don't have self-pity. What happened? I don't know. I'm not going to try to figure it out. I'm just going to embrace it and walk in it. We lose interest in selfish things. My boyfriend, my job, my money. It ain't about you. It's about him. And anything you put before him, you will lose. Or it certainly won't have the fulfillment that you think it will. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us that we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Let me tell you something, people. It's better that they come slow. And it says they will always, say always, materialize if you work for them. Let me tell you something. I got a 22-year-old daughter that works for me who's sitting in the front row. She hasn't had an easy life, but these promises have come true. 12 years ago, everything I owned was in a hefty bag. This afternoon, I signed on the dotted line to put my 18-year-old daughter through college. You don't tell me. And my ex-wife that had to walk away from me because of my addiction, I didn't have anything, nothing. I had legal consequences, financial consequences. She looked at me at lunch today, says, I'm a little short. Can you take it? The promises do come true. A crack addict can recover. He can know a new freedom and a new happiness. Economic insecurity will leave you. You will bless people. You will bless people when it don't make sense for you to bless people. You can stand tall and say, you know what? Everything I owned was in a pipe. Now my daughter's going to college. My other daughter's going to Haiti. My son does Bible camp. This church exists. Don't tell me for 1 minute that you can't do this. Don't tell me for 1 minute that if God can take a chronic crack addict like me and my signature alone can put somebody through college. You don't tell me God's real. And I ain't boasting on me, I'm boasting on him. Because he took the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst, heroin addict, crack addict, terrible father, terrible husband, terrible son, thief, manipulator, down, nasty, stanky, dirty crack addict. And every one of those words in that 9-step promises have come true better than I ever. So quit doing your own thing. Do not come to me and ask me to go to bat for you when you ain't even going back for yourself. Help me out, Pastor Jeff. Help me out. Help me out. No, you help yourself out. Man up, woman up. This thing is for you. If God didn't love you, if we didn't love you, you wouldn't be here. You've got to do this. I had to do this. I can't tell you, man. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to close with this. It says in Matthew 5, in order to be at peace, you need to make peace. Therefore, if you're offering a gift at the altar there, remember that your brother and sister has something against you. A lot of people have a lot of stuff against us. And they have every right to have that stuff against us. Man up. Woman up. Face your fear. Walk out your destiny. Own it. I did it. I am a manipulator. I am a liar, and I am a thief. And I am a shortcutter, and I am full of BS. That's who I am. And as soon as you own that, you will disown it, and you will walk in your freedom. Quit trying to play games and try to, you know how much God loves you? He brought you to a person like me. I told that story 25 years ago, and it didn't work. Don't tell me what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and this, that, and the other. Oh, you don't understand. I understand. I walked through the muck and mire to get to where I am today. I didn't take any shortcuts. I faced every fear that I knew how, and I walked through, and I sat at that lunch table today, and I looked at that 18-year-old daughter that said to me when she was 1 year old, when I was smoking crack in front of her face, the first word she ever said to me, her father, as I blew a hit of crack out that I smoked in front of her, she said, "Why?" And today, I signed on the dotted line. Today, we own this church. Today, we have 9 houses. Today, I'm happily married. Today, I have a profession. Why? Not because of me. Because of him. God bless you.